Hello everyone, and we are finally here for the third Doctor era review. Oh my goodness, I mean, most of you guys know this, but I was caught a bit off guard with the third Doctor's regeneration. I genuinely didn't think, I thought I had at least another season or so with the third Doctor, so and I think at some point in the reaction or in the post-episode thoughts, I just was like, oh my God, I have to write a review. And most times I, like getting you a review pretty much soon after I finish the era, but it was a busy time. There was a lot going on, and I was like, and also another thing, the third Doctor era is, I believe, I mean, it had a lot in it. It wasn't just like a short thing that I could just recap really quickly in my mind to put my thoughts on paper and everything like that. So I kind of had to revisit a bunch of stuff, and it took a while. So I apologize for that, but I think that is just sort of, that just happens when I don't know when a regeneration is coming. And I don't know that I should, start working on the review. But yeah, I am really, really excited. Just so you know, I have a notebook down here where I wrote everything. So I'm going to be looking down a lot and making sure that I'm saying everything that I want to say. And yeah, I'm excited. Let's get into it. So really, the first thing that I wanted to talk about with the third Doctor whole era time on the show is that, it changed the format of what the show could be. The success of Doctor Who, in my opinion, can really be attributed to the fact, well, there's a lot of factors, but one of them is the ability to change. Every single different Doctor, maybe different companion, different showrunner, writers, whatever it is, can bring something new to the table. And one of the things that I find really refreshing is that we can all pick what we really love from Doctor Who, what era was our favorites. It doesn't have to, it sticks to the base formula, but it can change. This era, I feel like, welcomed one of the first major shifts in the show. Not just the regeneration made that change, or that we now the episodes are now in color. That's a different change, but the actual formula of the show was completely different, with it being very Earthbound, right? And with a very large presence of unit, having recurring characters, having a bigger cast. I remember way back when I started Doctor Who, I always, you guys know this if you've been following me for a while, I like bigger casts in shows a lot of the time, rather than, just two characters or whatever. And sometimes that works, and sometimes that's brilliant. I think one of the best pairings for the TARDIS team is Ten and Donna. So, I mean, I think that it can work, but I actually do tend to like bigger ensembles, and I said that, I think, towards the beginning of me watching Doctor Who, and I remember people being like, wait till you get to the third Doctor era, because there's a lot of different kind of people, and it is one of my favorite things about this this era, absolutely. So, but I mean, also just the types of stories they told. A lot of them were, on Earth, or a good portion of them were on Earth. And it was more, kind of the Doctor sort of setting up shop, so to speak, with unit on Earth. And it was less like, oh, where are we going to be next week? It's more like, what invasion are we going to get, or whatever. Did I like this sort of shift in the show? Yes. I think it took a little bit of getting used to. The only thing that I don't love, I might be calling some people out, but are those fans that say that this is where Doctor Who really started, because I adore the first Doctor and the second Doctor and their TARDIS teams and their stories and them as doctors. So that's the only thing that just really angers me. I understand maybe some people don't like watching black and white stuff, whatever, or older stuff, whatever. This is not where Doctor Who started. Okay, thank you. Also, with the military presence in the show and the Doctor just kicking people about all the time, there was also, I feel like, a shift of who the Doctor could be. You know, was the Doctor really witty and intelligent and used science to get out of situations? Yes. Did he also kick people a lot to get out of situations? Yes. I loved the fact that it kind of changed, you know, what the Doctor could be without really changing the core of who he is. I liked that we added, you know, a little bit more fight scenes. We added some gadgets, cars, and a very, 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 very long chase scene. Okay, that chase. I can't with that chase scene. I can't. I know some of you love it, but I cannot. I think the show did a really, really good job of balancing the fact that they wanted to take the Doctor, clearly this Doctor, into a new sort of maybe actiony, James Bondy type of Doctor, but also stay true to who the character was before. And I think I liked the way that they were able to balance the two different ways that the Doctor would get out of any given situation. When I started this era, I was genuinely curious if the stories were going to start getting kind of stale or formulaic, and I guess maybe in a way they were, because I mean, how many Earth gets invaded and the Doctor and company saves the day type of stories can you have? Apparently a lot. But what was really, really interesting is I felt like, because we had a bigger cast, because we had the Master thrown into the mix a lot, there was a lot of different dynamics that could go around and different interactions within the characters, that, I mean, obviously it's almost heavily centered around the Doctor, but I did really think that sort of added to the fact that it's not the exact same type of story every single time, which I loved. And what I also loved is we got a decent sense of who they were, even though they weren't on screen all the time. I'm more so talking about maybe like members of UNIT and stuff like that. I genuinely, like, I do not believe that, you know, there can be a really great dynamic with a bigger group or a bigger ensemble. Because I think a lot of people were talking about them not really liking the bigger TARDIS team with the 13th Doctor, and I just really don't think that was the problem at all. I think that in the Third Doctor era is a great example of that, because we got a good feel of who Benton was, even though he wasn't, you know, in the show like every episode or had the biggest role in every episode, but we know who he is and we know we love him, right? We know. Obviously the episodes with UNIT, sorry, I have to keep looking down to catch my train of thought. Some of the episodes with UNIT are absolutely my favorite to watch. You guys already know they are my favorite to watch. I loved so many of the characters from UNIT, and it, you know, it was one of those things that I didn't know. I knew that I loved it, but I didn't know how much I loved it until, I don't know, we obviously I'm a little bit into the Fourth Doctor era right now, but we are obviously not getting as much UNIT, at least not yet, that we got in the Third Doctor era, and I was just, I adored it. I really, really liked the dynamic And yeah, that's one of my favorite things about this era. So now let's talk about the third Doctor specifically. I loved, as I said before, how, you know, John made the Doctor kind of new and fresh and exciting without really kind of deterring too much about who the Doctor is at his core. And I always find it really fascinating the route that they take the Doctor after a new regeneration. And I always say this thing, I'm going to say it in every review, but I love to think that the Doctor's regeneration is almost a response to the previous Doctor. Now, that's just probably my own made up thing, but I like to think of it that way. You know, the second Doctor was really sneaky. He was a master of disguise. He also could be aloof or pretended that he was aloof. I don't really think he was as aloof as he always tried to seem, but the third Doctor was more in your face, sometimes kicking it. Like he was kicking your face, okay? He was very, he had a very stern quality to his presence. It was, it was calm, but it was not as maybe silly as the second Doctor was. And I think it's a tribute to how, you know, John really, well, how the show really changed in tone and how he was able to sort of still have this very stern, stoic presence and very almost in your face and kicking it, while still having these little glimmers of silliness or something that you can kind of maybe see being more so like the second Doctor-esque trait. He gave a lot more action and adventure scenes, but he still really showcased that he was a doctor. He was the Doctor. You know what I mean? He was smart, heroic, curious, like all of the factors and personality personality traits that we associate with the Doctor. And he was also, I think, across the board of any Doctor, was insanely annoyed with any idiots that he came across. I feel like that's just the Doctor. There was an interesting vibe with John as the Doctor that I had to kind of, I guess, maybe grow to love a little bit. You know, he wasn't as outwardly as affectionate as maybe 2 was, at least in my opinion. He had it, obviously, as I said, a very stern nature, but he had at times a very condescending tone with a lot of the people that he was working with. And I understand that, you know, that happens with the Doctor sometimes. I mean, it just happens. My biggest issue was when it would unnecessarily go pretty hard against the Brigadier, but I mean, people can argue about that in the comments of whether it's deserved or not. But honestly, I think because he had not the most, you know, affectionate demeanor with everybody, it made his really warm moments, his heartwarming moments, his moments where there is, you know, that showcasing of sentiment and stuff, hit a bit harder. And I actually really appreciated that as kind of time went on. You know, namely with Jo, I will say, but we're going to get to that. We're going to get to all of the companions and everything. These glimmers of just warmth and compassion made him so much more than that, like, action hero Doctor stereotype that I feel like he could have very easily fallen into. You know, I feel like the show really was taking a direction. We're gonna have chase scenes and fight scenes in the military and let's go, you know, like very I'm sure that was the pitch meeting. But I really truly attribute so much to John as an actor, to that he, I think he did that. He killed that. He kicked, like I said, could be a Rockette. He kicked those bitches, okay? He surely did. But he also had, this sort of curiosity for science, and this, moments of warmth and compassion. And obviously one of my absolute favorite things about the Doctor is how much he truly cares for companions, how much he truly cares for just the people of Earth in general. I really, really love that. So speaking of warmth and relationships, we are going to get into the companions and friends of the Doctor throughout the Third Doctor era. I am not going to get into the logistics of who qualifies as a companion and who qualifies as a friend and who qualifies as a coworker. You can all argue about what the definition is. I think some people listen, most of the people that I'm going to be talking about, I kind of consider as a companion, whether they took a trip in the TARDIS or not. Okay? Okay. And you can yell at me about it, but I'm not going to change my mind. Okay. Okay, so first we are going to talk about Liz Shaw, who was sadly short-lived. I do wonder if that was like the actress's decision or the show's decision. You guys might have told me in a reaction and maybe I forgot. I'm not entirely sure. But maybe it was a different direction the show wanted to go into. I don't really know the logistics of that, but she was fairly short-lived. I love the fact that she was really, really smart and educated. I loved that her being so intelligent and informed about a lot of stuff brought a very different dynamic with the Doctor. I know the show has a bit of a formula with companions, not all the time. I don't want to say it's like, completely 100%, but they like to set up, at least I've seen that they like to set up that, the Doctor has to explain things. The Doctor has to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not saying that Liz was smarter than the Doctor, but I loved the dynamic that they kind of could really sort of talk about ideas and stuff. And especially with the Third Doctor, as I said previously, sometimes would have a little bit of a condescending sort of tone with people who weren't as, up to his intelligence bar or whatever. So I actually really enjoyed the fact that he seemed to get along with Liz very well in that regard. I personally do not think that the Doctor has to be the one who comes up with the solution all the time. Obviously, the Doctor is a great character. He's had a lot of experiences. He's, I don't need that established anymore for me, so to speak. So if we have somebody really capable as a companion that can sort of help with that, I really I honestly like a different type of dynamic. I don't think we have to have the same formula going forward. How do I feel about Liz? I honestly can't tell you. I cannot tell you. I don't think we had enough time with her for me to form a strong opinion, to be honest. I think I like her. That's about the extent of what I can say about Liz. And I don't think, I just really, truly don't think I had enough time to really get to know her, but I liked what I saw. You know what I mean? I feel like, as I said before, a character doesn't need to be on a show for a very long time to leave a lasting impression, but I thought she was great. I thought she was wonderful. And you know what? I'm gonna say something brave yet controversial. I genuinely think it would have been a great dynamic to have both Liz and Jo on the show at the same time. I know, 2 female companions. We can't do it. We can't do it. I know the show that has done, like 2 female companions before with like Barbara and Susan and Barbara and Vicky did whatever. But I feel like there's been a bit of like one woman at a time since. Has there been overlap? I guess like we met Polly when Dodo left, right? I'm trying to think. You guys can catch me in a lie right now but it seems like it's been very one woman at a time. I'm just saying. I think that they would have had a great dynamic together. And I know that I've seen some comments of like, who's better, Liz or Jo? It's like, why do we always gotta pin the women against each other? They're both amazing, okay? I would have loved to have seen way more of Liz, and I think they could have continued on and brought Jo on, you know, with Liz there. I know, call me crazy. Call me crazy. All right. Yeah, I genuinely think, honestly, the long and short of all of this is that I think Liz deserved more time on the show. And I liked what I saw. And she was lovely. Okay, now I'm going to move on to Sarah Jane. Yes, Sarah Jane. I'm jumping. I'm doing a little jumpy jump. Because I have a feeling that I'll be talking about Sarah Jane a lot more when I do like the 4th Doctor review than the 3rd Doctor review, though I loved her with the 3rd Doctor. But I kind of wanted to end with the characters that were a little more indicative and specific to the 3rd Doctor era. You know what I mean? It's such an odd feeling revisiting a character I have gotten to know so well through New Who and the Sarah Jane Adventures. I already knew a bit about her character and her personality, though I'm positive that like some of that has changed over the years. You know, nobody has like this are the exact same person they were like however many years ago. But one of my favorite aspects of Sarah Jane as a companion is whenever they use her as like a journalist, as a sort of truth seeker, and in any given situation. She's also a wonderful companion that can kind of take charge of a situation, but also be pretty sensible about it. And I love that about her. Oddly, with the first season, or the 3rd Doctor's final season that she's in, I quite liked, you know, the few instances where she was kind of on her own with Unit. I thought that she, you know, had no problem standing her ground in a lot of situations, and to kind of, you know, sort of keep a decent composure in some very, very terrifying situations that she was put into. You know, as I said before, I don't need the Doctor to be the sole hero of any sort of story. And it was just interesting to me that her dynamic with the Doctor wasn't exactly my highlight with her. And I loved how she interacted with 3. I thought that they had, you know, like a very good dynamic. I thought it was great. They had a little bit of a sort of joking back and forth sort of dynamic. I really liked that. But I actually liked a lot of when she was sort of on her own, trying to figure stuff out. You know, the first story with her, I felt like really sort of embodied that in a lot of aspects of it. And and maybe it's because I kind of in my own mind sort of see her as the lead of the Sarah Jane Adventures, that I'm like, I kind of wish that she took charge more. But I know that she's she's the companion. She's the, you know, but I do, that's my favorite part of Sarah Jane, is whenever she really does sort of take charge. But I was kind of shocked that it wasn't necessarily that the interactions with the Doctor weren't like my absolute highlight of her as a character, because of how often it's talked about in the fandom. Though I'm pretty sure that they're talking more about maybe her dynamic with 4 than with 3. I'm not entirely sure, but you know. Obviously I will talk about her more with the 4th Doctor. But now it is time to head to my dear, beloved Unit. I'm going to talk about them individually. I'm just the Unit as a whole. You guys know. I love Unit. I love Unit so much. I wrote that. I wrote, I love Unit. I love Unit so much. I didn't need to write that. I probably would have said it anyway, but I wrote it. I wrote it because it's important. They continuously were the highlight for me for the Third Doctor era. You guys know, anytime in a reaction Unit's showing up, I'm like, ah! I'm like so excited. Makes me like a story like so much more, so much more. Obviously, specifically, Lethbridge Stewart, Yates, and Benton. My heart is with all three of them. I love them. I love them. I do not know how to say it. They have such a strong and permanent place in my heart. It's not even funny. I think that they're just such a great dynamic, and ugh. I love them. Did I mention that I love them? I should probably mention it a few more times for you to really get it. I genuinely, I can't put it into words other than that, so I apologize if I'm being repetitive. I really would love somebody, maybe for my birthday. Let's do this for my birthday. You guys know when my birthday is, May 3rd. Somebody send me a video of like a compilation of like Jessica loving, or you can say Saska, it's fine. Saska loving Unit for however many minutes. And somebody work on that. May 3rd. Tweet it to me. Okay. Anyway, though I do believe the relationship between the Brigadier and the Doctor was not always the best, it truly ended up in a great place. There's something so endearing about the fact that a lot of times maybe the Doctor and the Brigadier don't agree on everything. And you can see a little bit more in kind of the beginning of the relationship. There's a little tug and pull or whatever of, what they need to do in a given situation. Though throughout, obviously, also, I just want to say at the end of, the Brigadier doing something that the Doctor didn't really approve of pretty early on in the Third Doctor's run is not going to help. It's not going to help. That was a moment. But the relationship eventually, as time went on, the relationship eventually ended in a mutual trust. And I think the Brigadier more easily was able to trust the Doctor. And I find it even more endearing when there were moments where we could see that the Doctor was really trusting the Brigadier. That was probably some of my absolute favorite moments. By the end of it, they both genuinely believed that the other would do the right thing. And truly, some of my absolute favorite moments of the Third Doctor was whenever he gave the Brigadier any sort of credit or said something nice to him. I have talked about, like, a lot of his remarks towards the Brigadier could be kind of condescending. However, I will say, probably a man that's been in the military that long he's got thick skin and like whatever. I don't think he really gives a shit, to be fair. I think because of that type of sort of rapport that they had with each other, I actually think that those sweet moments where the Doctor, kind of would say something, there was one, now I can't remember when it was, there was in some story where he actually really defended the Brigadier for like a line or two, but I was just like, oh! I was like, I have no words. It's just so sweet. And I love that because obviously I went into, Classic Who knowing that the Brigadier, Lethbridge Stewart, is a dear friend of the Doctor, one of his most trusted allies, and so I knew we were going to get there eventually. I didn't think that it was going to be like all animosity, and it wasn't purely animosity in the beginning. I just think that they didn't listen. Some things happened, it was a thing. But because the Doctor had, such a stoic exterior, the sentimental moments with the Brigadier packed more of a punch. And I'm not saying that they like declared their, you know, undying friendship for each other or anything. Does that happen? I would love that. We should just write that in. That's just something we'll add. I think in the beginning of the show, maybe the Doctor more so thought of him as more of like a resource than like a friendship, like an actual friendship. But I feel like a camaraderie eventually developed, and it's just beautiful to watch. I really like them together, even when they're poking fun at each other. So, it was subtle. I'm not sure I could put my finger on any like huge moments where, like I said, any sort of declaration of friendship or anything like that. But I feel like by the end of the Third Doctor's run, you could tell that their relationship is stronger than at the beginning of his run, and the trust is there. I also want to say that I really love that that the Brigadier was there during the Third Doctor's regeneration. You know, the Doctor certainly had more of a sentimental moment with Sarah Jane, but I think it was important for the Brigadier to be there. He provided a certain lightheartedness and almost comical comments to an otherwise very sad scene. I truly love the progression of his character from the beginning of his appearances. I'm talking about the Brigadier right now. To how he sort of just accepted the weird stuff and kind of makes jokes about it. That's like genuinely, he was very, you know, well, here we go again. Like, it's very like, all right, I guess this is what we're dealing with now. You know, like I love that sort of vibe with him. That he, I feel like, has grown as well. He will still shoot at the villains. He will still shoot at the villains, even if they keep coming. You know, listen, lots of times it doesn't work, but when it does, I'm very happy. There was that one time where he shot at something and it went down. And I cheered. I said, congratulations. All right. Now I think it's a wonderful time for me to talk about the ever so delightful Sergeant Benton. What a lovely soul, a dedicated soldier, and a compassionate human. I know the Doctor Who community is divisive about pretty much everything, right? For the most part. I love this person. I hate them. Does anybody not like Benton? I'm just curious. And honestly, if you answer yes to that question, just keep that shit to yourself. Just keep going to the corner in shame. How dare you? I'm just kidding. I'm not really, but a little bit. I am genuinely curious, though, if there's somebody who's like, hate that guy. Like, not just like, he's all right. You can maybe see how people would go, he's all right. Does anybody dislike Benton? Because I feel like he might be one of the characters that's just fairly likable. Universally. Is that not true? Are there Benton haters out there? I can't imagine. Are there? I'm just curious. That's just, you guys can answer that question if you know. But joking aside about all of that, at least from my perspective, I truly felt like whenever Benton was in a story, there was just a comforting feeling about it. Like there was going to be somebody who was going to do everything that they needed to do, that they were going to try their hardest to help the Brigadier and help the Doctor. And you could tell that the Doctor really, really liked Benton, probably more than he liked the Brigadier. Or at least like working with him or whatever. I feel like he always softened whenever Benton was in the room. I feel like everybody likes Benton. I don't know. Is it just me? I loved the charming dynamic he had with the other members of UNIT. He was a great soldier. He was also a great leader. He was wonderful. There was something really great about going into a Doctor Who story, because you know how many one motherfuckers there are. Okay, you guys know about the one motherfuckers. there's one in every story, and they're just there to be annoying, to not listen to the doctor, and to fuck shit up. And I feel like Benton's kind of like the like counteracts that. He shows up and you're like, oh, well, at least we'll have somebody who's going to do what needs to be done. Unless he gets turned into a baby. Guys, can we talk about the baby? Can we talk about the baby? He got turned into a baby. That was weird. But Benton was a baby. Okay, all right. I'm never gonna forget that. Okay, that's like ingrained into my brain. He was absolutely a delight to have around, and he really has skyrocketed in the list of companions that I would love to see return. Honestly, I think he would be great to return. And I genuinely believe that he might be one of the most underrated characters in Doctor Who, because he's one of those characters that I never heard about. You know, when people are like, just wait till you get to Jamie. Just wait till you get to Sarah Jane. I mean, you know what I mean. He's not really talked about that much, but he's amazing. He's iconic, and he's wonderful. And he was turned into a baby, and it's weird. Now let's move on to the highlight and my favorite character in the Third Doctor era, which I feel like is not a popular opinion. But when have I ever given a popular opinion? Mike Yates. There are quite a few things that I loved about it. I'm going to be reading a lot because I wrote down a lot. I have a lot to say, okay? But there are quite a few things that I loved about Yates. The start of my love for him was these just little moments of selfless and brave moments. I feel like there's parts of a reaction where I'm just like, who is this gentleman? Just like running into danger, doing all of this craziness. Like he just goes and does it. And, you know, which I don't relate to. I would be in the TARDIS. Me and Mike maybe we would be a decent team because he could go and run and do all of the dangerous stuff. And I'd check out over there. But I always really loved the way that he was also really crafty. Like, I feel like he was taken prisoner a lot and escaped every time and didn't get recaptured. Okay? Maybe he did. I actually don't remember. But I loved the fact that, again, it was a little bit of like a comforting presence, much like with Benton, that like, you're just like, oh, well, Mike's there. He's gonna handle it. It's fine. It's fine. I loved that about his character. I loved the fact that he always seemed to be the first to really want to sort of run and do the right thing. He wouldn't ask, you know, like his men to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. And I thought he was great. I thought he had a wonderfully kind of light personality. And I just really loved his dynamic. And he always just like brightened up my day whenever he was like in a story doing the most. And I thought him and Benton are just very, very underrated characters in the Third Doctor era. I loved the sort of dynamic that he had with like everybody he worked with. I thought that was really great. And I was just so happy whenever he was showing up in a story. I loved that they were able to showcase that Yates was capable, strong, intelligent, funny, all of these kind of like really great qualities in a character. And I truly, honestly would have loved more one-on-one time with him and the Doctor. Now, we got a little bit of it. Which I love. That's probably one of my favorite reactions in the Third Doctor era is when, because what am I telling you? Who's this crafty son of a bitch? Like when he just happened to show up undercover and they're like, let me introduce you to my associate with the Doctor. And I lost it. That was like, I adored it. Of course he's the one going in undercover. Of course. Anyway, I think that they would have been a really, really great match, him and the doctor, and I think that would have been wonderful. Okay. Guys, we gotta talk about it. Let's talk about the most personally attacked I've ever felt in Doctor Who. Personally. In my heart. Now we're gonna get into it. You gave me a story. Not you, but Doctor Who. You gave me a story about dinosaurs. You know how I feel about dinosaurs. My Betties. And you do all sorts of nonsense with my favorite character in it. It's not in my top 5. It's not in my top 5 because I'm angry at it and I want to love the story with dinosaurs, and I'm still mad about it, and I'm allowed to be mad about it. Okay, so let's get a little serious about this for a moment. Okay, I know that there are people who actually like the story arc with Mike. They think it makes sense. I got a lot of comments on that. Okay. What I do want to say is that I actually like that they did something with one of these companions. They gave a companion a bit of an arc. They gave something kind of really interesting, and I love the focus on maybe what happened to him, sort of causing a little bit of trauma, mentally struggling. I mean, I think that the show could absolutely spend a little bit more time talking about sort of the mental state of these people because of what, they have to go through. I'm just talking about and joking about and loving, honestly, everything about Mike, putting himself in danger, doing all of that, doing what he believes to be the right thing. I love the idea of them kind of saying, this is a character who throws himself into danger pretty quickly because it's the right thing, because he wants to save people. He has this, it's a great mentality for it. That can take a toll. And when he keeps coming face to face with maybe some terrible things that humanity themselves have even done, or just, I am not refuting the fact or am displeased with the fact that they're talking about a character who, gets kind of a chip on his shoulder about that stuff and struggles mentally. I actually love that we're going to focus on that. Let's do that more. What I felt was disingenuous to his character was not what he was going through. It was that he was okay with this plan. And it doesn't matter how much you guys might want to make the argument. I do not think that Mike Yates, the man who just does what he needs to do to save people, to protect Earth, to help the Doctor, to whatever, would get to a point where he really wants to betray these sole people that he knows are good people, but also would want to sacrifice. Wasn't that the big whole thing of this? It's like, we're gonna get rid of humanity and start over. I'm sorry, there is nothing, I'm not even kidding. It would be, you can't convince me that that's something that Mike is like, yep, sounds good. And I just kind of wish that they wrote in a little bit that maybe he didn't know everything. I don't know. It's just sort of like, that is, I think, what really upset me about this portrayal. Anyway, it was jarring. You have to also understand that you guys probably, have seen this story a while, and you know, probably able to, you know, digest it, so to speak, over time or whatever. But it was so jarring to me. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Is he possessed? What's going on? Like, it's just, and you know, they did write it so that he didn't really want to, you know, like hurt the doctor or anything like that. But I do think that there were some aspects of it that just didn't make sense to me for his character. And I hope I put that into decent enough words for you guys to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not one that really likes to pick apart, you know, writing choices. You guys know this about me, but that I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I think if they wanted to do this with Yates and his character, one, either do some sort of build up for us to understand how he got to that point, or to just sort of, you know, I just, and I know that some people could say, oh, there is build up, but not really. And I'm talking about the show. Okay, you guys can write about, you know, all of the, maybe there were Big Finish audios or unreleased, you know, short stories or whatever that explain stuff more or whatever. I understand, but this is about the show, so I'm going to talk about what I've seen, what I know. I actually genuinely really appreciate that they were trying to put, I think at least, a little bit of a spotlight of how you can be affected mentally when kind of being thrust into these situations all the time, and, you know, what specifically happened to him. But I believe the goal of what they were trying to do in this story, it was a stretch too far for this character, that I think it's a disservice to the character. My opinion. However, I will say I do like that they didn't end his character on that. That would have left such a bitter taste in my mouth. I would have been really, really upset. We at least got to see him again, see him kind of, you know, helping, doing the right thing, getting help mentally. King, we love. You know, I kind of being an ally to the doctor, and I really, you know, I loved that, the invasion of the dinosaur. I mean, also, it's just the way that, like, the Brigadier, I feel like he wouldn't have betrayed all of them like that, you know? I don't know. I get defensive. I don't care. I get defensive of him. Because I just don't think he would do that. And I understand they wanted to maybe have the shock value of it being somebody they knew and doing a good twist like that. Whatever. I get that, but it hurts my heart that it was him. I want to end this on a happier note. I guess not happier, seeing as in the end it didn't really work out. But I wanted to say that, like, I loved the dynamic between both Yates and Jo. And it didn't have to be romantic, though I was here for it being romantic. When they were talking about, like, going on a date or whatever, but, like, I really, really loved just their dynamic together, which was showcased in a few great moments and episodes, and I really, really liked them sort of working together. I think I think they both share the kind of trait of being a little bit sort of rushing into danger type of vibes. I think he's a little more, he's trying to plan his steps ahead, where she's like, I'll figure it out as I go. And I love that dynamic with them together. I thought that they had a really cute chemistry, and the flirtiness was really sweet. So I really, really loved any stories that allowed them to have any sort of screen time together. They were fun, they were flirty, and one of the, you know, great aspects, in my opinion, of kind of the pairings that have happened throughout the Third Doctor's era. So let's talk about Jo. Oh, God. All right. I have no problem saying that Jo is definitely one of my favorite companions in Classic Who so far. I love her. She is, however, undoubtedly the best dressed. I love her outfit. She's got great style. I have a deep love, and I know that this is not a popular opinion for a lot of people, but I have a deep love for some 70s fashion. This is a side note, you guys don't care, but I'm going to tell you anyway. But I really, really love the like earthy tones that they have. There was in the Demons episode with, I think it was Mike who showed up with that like brown, he looked good. He turned it with that look. And Jo, I think she did a lot of, I loved how she had like 50,000 rings on her fingers, because I love like, you know that rule that people say, take one accessory off before you leave the house. I say add 5 more on. That's what I say. I love that about her. I love that she had like a lot of sort of like really practical wear that was great. Some brighter, she was iconic with her outfits, and she killed it every time. Yeah. Not the most important part of this review, but I just wanted to say that. Anyway, okay, I adored her relationship with the Doctor, but also her sort of fun-loving charm with Unit as well. I think of Jo as a breath of fresh air. And I don't mean that as, you know, I didn't like companions before. I mean that in the sense of she had this lovely positivity that played so beautifully against specifically the Third Doctor's sort of, as I said, kind of almost serious tone. I loved that. I truly think that she had such great chemistry with the Third Doctor. I mean, just beautiful chemistry. It's almost as if, I don't know if you guys think this as well, but it's almost as if John sort of lights up a bit when she's in a scene with him. And we see such a lovely warmth he has towards her, that this version of the Doctor, let's be real, doesn't really show too many other people. The Doctor, one thing that I loved about Jo and why I felt like she was a great match for Mike, just saying, was her bravery, her impulsive nature. She is running headfirst into danger and to do the right thing. But I have to give credit to Katie. I have to give so much credit, because the portrayal of that can come off as really almost like, ugh, she's running into danger again. But she makes it so endearing. She does it, this impulsive nature that some people would regard as like not really, not really rational, like, oh, she didn't think this through. She does it in such a delightful way that it is just, it's fun. It's fun. And I truly loved how self-aware she was about it too. That goes a long way in a lot of these characters, I feel like, in these companions. She knows who she is. She knows she's running into danger. And the doctor made a few comments at the start of her run as her probably not being the brightest person in the room, right? You know, which I think she took in jest. I don't think she took that seriously, but she made up for this by having like a tremendous amount of heart. You know, I think she definitely, she knows she's not the smartest, or at least not as smart as the doctor about certain things. But she wanted to have something more in her life. I love that about her. Because I believe it was like she got the job through her. Did I make that up? No, I don't think I did. But I think she just wanted something more. And she got those types of adventures that she was really yearning for. She was yearning for something more in her life. And she got that with the doctor. And over the course of her time on the show, I feel like she's one of those companions you can actually see grow and improve. She becomes very clever, strong, capable, you know, shows restraint every so often in the later episodes. Who knew? And she's even a woman, you know, fighting her way to even, you know, save the doctor. You know, I think that there's just such a wonderful... The doctor doesn't always get like saved by his companions or knows that a companion is really going to take charge and do stuff on her own. And she figures it out. She really takes a lot of leaps of faith. I think she's refreshing to watch for me because I feel like she's, I find some things very similar with her, the personality traits. But when it comes to obviously the impulsiveness, I am so damn cautious. I would be like, with everything. The doctor got captured. Well, he's probably going to sit there for a while to like formulate a very detailed plan. Where she's just like, the doctor's in trouble. Ah! And she goes. Yes, I think there was earlier on maybe a judgmental sort of demeanor or element with, you know, the doctor towards Jo. I feel like he just knew what type of person he kind of wanted to be around. You know, obviously when the Brigadier kind of brought the, you know, Jo in to be like, this is your newest thing. He's like, I don't need that or this type of person or whatever. I don't know that Jo obviously fit the bill of who he thought he wanted, but she evolved and proved herself time and time again with him. I think she has learned a lot from the doctor, obviously, but I think the doctor also learned a lot from her. I think he learned that, you know, maybe somebody who's not necessarily what he would consider to be like the best qualified to be his assistant, but she could be, you know, she could have all of the heart in the world. She can prove herself. She can be an asset. And I think truly that's one of the reasons that makes her goodbye so very sad for him. I think the doctor allowed himself to show a very certain side of himself to Jo that he may, at least this version of the doctor, didn't really show anybody else, because she sort of dug into that, you know, like she cracked down that hard exterior. And I think he may have felt like he was losing Jo, of course. But I think he also felt like he might have lost, you know, that side of himself that he actually enjoyed when he was, you know, going on adventures with Jo. I did like that it was her decision to leave the doctor. I don't know how I feel about her choice in men, but, you know, everybody's different. Everybody has different tastes. We don't all have to have the same. And it's not because I wanted her time to end. You know, like I like the idea that she left, but it's not always how it goes for companions. You know, where a companion sort of makes the decision that, you know, and it seems kind of very Jo to want a new adventure. Okay, we're going on a new adventure. I want to go do this new thing. And I kind of really like that. I like that she evolved. I think she became better because of the Doctor, for sure. But she also kind of stayed true for that, like, wanting to seek adventure. I really loved that about her. You know, obviously the Doctor has experienced loss and loss of companions at this point. I think this one was a little bittersweet for him. I think he was so proud of who she became. I think he was so proud of her. And, you know, I think he was almost like a father watching, like, his daughter go off to college. But I think he's going to miss that bond. He's going to miss what he once had with her. I was happy for her. I didn't want her to get, like, a tragic ending. And I knew that she at least lived because we saw her. Or I've seen her, obviously, in the future. But I was kind of, you know, I didn't want it to be like a really, really sad ending. And though it was sad that they separated, it wasn't the most tragic ending of a companion. Honestly, she was a brilliant companion that could only be as successful as she was because of the wonderful performance by Katie Manning. I truly miss her presence in the show. I really, really do. And I adore her, and also her outfits, because she killed it. Okay, I was wondering who I was going to end kind of going through the characters and stuff on, and it's the Master. I felt like the Master had such a strong presence in the Third Doctor era. I know that we'll see him again at some point in Classic Who, I assume, but, you know, I truly wanted to kind of end on this because it was just such an important aspect in the Third Doctor era. Seeing how the Master started off on Doctor Who was so wonderful to see, because obviously I've seen a bunch of different versions pretty much in New Who. I loved how he played the Master with it. I mean, Roger Delgado did like this menacing but charismatic sort of vibe, and I really liked that. I also loved the depth given to the Master so early on. I know I have some glimpses into future versions of the Master, and they might in New Who sort of dive a little bit deeper into the psyche of what's going on, which is, you know, sometimes very scary, and I don't know if we really want that, but they do it. But I adored that they established the Master as a formidable villain, right? You know, a good adversary for the Doctor, but also showed some of his, like, vulnerabilities, some of his insecurities. There were peeks into the Master sort of wanting to defeat the Doctor, but also yearn for his approval of said defeat. You know what I mean? Which is very, you know, very mastery. It's very like, you know, I'm going to fuck you up, but I need you to tell me that I'm doing a good job at fucking you up. Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of the vibe, right? And, you know, I love that the Doctor's relationship with the Master is, you know, filled with rivalry, disdain, and friendship, sort of. Kind of. It's weird. It's weird. It's so very nuanced and not that easy to just portray. And I think both John and Roger do a phenomenal job. Their chemistry is off the chain, that I think really set the precedent for this very complicated relationship that, you know, will evolve, possibly more in Classic Who, I don't actually know, but evolve even more in New Who at least. And you know, it's something that is a wonderful blueprint and very well done for kind of future Doctors and Masters to sort of emulate, in my opinion. I also really adored that there was an entire Master season. Listen, I know that a lot of Classic Who was just this story and then this story and this story. That's about as close as I'm gonna get to like a season-long plot, and I will take it, okay? Because I do tend to like those a little bit more than the like standalone stories. So guys, I was here for it. I was here for it. And I don't think, when did I notice that the Master was in every story? It was like close to the end. I was like, was the Master in every story this season? What is this? And I know that maybe some people would think that that got overused, but I don't know. There's a lot of Classic Who to go through. I'm fine with a whole Master season. You know what I mean? I think it brought another element of consistency to the Third Doctor's era that I feel like the other, you know, Doctors don't really have, which is, okay, I know it's weird to say that like something's consistent when it's like surrounding around a very inconsistent and chaotic character, but you know what I mean. I think that there's a certain, not only do we have a little bit of comfort in, you know, obviously like Unit being in stories and having kind of a bigger cast with Jo and Liz, Sarah Jane, you know, like all the, and obviously the members of Unit, him being based on Earth, Bessie, you know, things like that. But we also have the Master. I don't know if he's comforting, but it's just something that, like, I don't know, there's just something very delightful about the Third Doctor era where it's like, you kind of know what you're going to get. I love it. I really loved that we saw the Master so much because it was so very evident. I think that this really helped prove how his life is almost controlled by his obsessive rivalry with the Doctor. The Doctor cares about Earth. The Doctor is on Earth a lot in the Third Doctor era. So the Master constantly puts Earth in danger to get the Doctor's attention. You know what I mean? Like, it all makes sense. It all works. And like at one point, doesn't he literally save the Doctor? He like saves the Doctor so that the Doctor can witness the destruction of Earth. That's, I think, the epitome of who the Master is. He's like, okay, I'm going to save you so you can witness this horrible thing that I'm going to do to you. I also need your approval that I'm doing a good job at fucking with you. Like, it's just, it's funny. It's all very fascinating how Delgado is able to convey all of these complexities in such a, honestly, like, sinister performance. It is interesting to see kind of who the first Master was, and you know, how the different iterations of him. I don't agree with, like, there are, I know that there's a lot of people who critique maybe future Masters, because they're like, well, no, the Master's not supposed to be like that. The Master's supposed to be like this, right? But like, is every Doctor the same as the first? No. So I don't know. I think that there's a little bit of, when people think of Roger Delgado as their favorite Master, like, nobody else compares. And I totally get that, but I just, you know, I don't need every Master to follow the same blueprint. But I love the fact that there is a certain amount of, like, charm, evil, like, mixture of some insecurities. Like, it's just so well done, and I love it. It was great to see the Master pop up time and time again in this era. Sometimes it was a little more obvious than others. There was one moment, and I can't remember the story. You guys can tell me because you probably remember. Was it the colony in space? I want to say it was that one, but I don't remember, where the Master showed up, and I felt like the dumbest person on the planet for not guessing that it was him. I think it was that one, but you guys can let me know. I felt so dumb because I was like, of course it's him. Anyway, but I want to end with this when talking about the Master. You know what was kind of my favorite thing about the Master? And you guys can tell me if you think I'm crazy or if you agree. It kind of seemed like he liked Jo. Not like in a creepy way, not in a like, I want to kill her to get the Doctor's attention. He seemed like he liked Jo. Like he thought she was like lovely. Whenever you see the Master almost, or versions of the Master sort of interact with companions, there's sometimes maybe like they disregard them, or there's jealousy, or there's all sorts of stuff with that. But like, I've always felt like he genuinely likes her, and it's oddly sweet, and I don't know how to feel about it. So I just wanted to end with that. Okay guys, so we are going to end this video with my top 5 episodes of the Third Doctor's era. It was hard to narrow down. I was staring at about, I think, 8, not episode stories, sorry. I was staring at about 8 different stories, and I was like, I have to pick 5, and it was very difficult. But I went with my gut. Maybe it'll change over time. I do wonder if I go back and like look at what I picked as like my top 5 favorite episodes of like the first Doctor era, if that would be the same as it is now. I think it would be, but I just, anyway. All right, so in 5th place is The Time Warrior. I loved the introduction to Sarah Jane, and I honestly think one of the best uses of Sarah Jane in this episode, or in this story, I loved the fact that she was just really curious, and you could tell that it was the whole journalist thing was right on display. I love the historical nature of it. I think that maybe that was like the one thing that I felt was kind of missing a bit in the Third Doctor's era, that I felt myself missing a little bit, was the historical kind of stories. And the Doctor surely, let me tell you, put a lot of kicking to good use in this story. I loved the Professor in this story. He was iconic. It's a good, fun story. And a wonderful introduction to one of the most iconic companions in Doctor Who. The story coming in at number 4 is The Green Death. I liked a lot about this story. It kind of had a little bit of everything. It was one of those longer stories for like the Third Doctor era, I'll say. One of the longer stories that didn't feel as long as it is. I loved the use of Mike in that story, even though apparently it caused him trauma, so whoopsie-doo. But I did love, the interactions between Mike and the Doctor in this story. I loved that there was kind of a message in this story, that there was something to actually be like fairly thought-provoking, which can happen various times in Doctor Who, but I liked that it was something that kind of made you think with all of that stuff. But really, a lot of it has to do with sort of the departing of Jo and the kind of sentimental, sweet moments between her and the Doctor, and the way that goodbye was handled, which I felt was very well done. They did an amazing job at conveying how bittersweet that scene really was, for the Doctor and for Jo. And it was just to be able to really, get that emotion out of me, or maybe some other people in the audience as well, I thought was just really, really well done. I think that story had a bit of everything, and it was quite beautifully done. Okay, my third favorite story in the Third Doctor era is actually Inferno. Okay, so we run the spectrum here, okay? Because I love a good fun-loving, fun, exciting adventure, and then you throw Inferno at me, and it's dark, it's kind of scary, it's really twisted. There's a lot going on. One, I love that everybody kind of got to play like a counterpart. Not everybody, but some of the actors got to play a counterpart of themselves, and like all of that was kind of fun. But I mean, let me just say, I don't always love alternate reality type of episodes. This is one of the best stories that kind of has that trope that I've ever seen. It was really, really good. The decision that, even the Doctor having to go through, I mean, and it was just, I felt like I had like a little pit in my stomach, like after watching that. I mean, it was intense, which, I mean, it's called Inferno. I don't think you think that it's going to be like a happy-go-lucky story, but I do love the fact that, regardless of maybe setting wise, we knew what we were going to get with a lot of the Third Doctor era. Tone wise, you don't really know when something like that's going to hit you. And I remember after watching that, I remember like even saying to myself, like, that's probably going to be in the top 5 in the Third Doctor. And it was what like the fourth story in the Third Doctor, no, it was fourth, I think. And I was just like, that was good. That was really good. Brilliant. And I just think that it's phenomenal. So coming in second place, the Three Doctors. Okay, I'm kind of biased. Listen, I'm a little biased about this story. This is like the exact opposite of the Inferno, where it's fun. It's fun. There's so much fun stuff about it. I did stuff with the Brigadier is fun, and then the stuff with all of the, like, oh my god. Okay, the villain, I will say, is super over the top. And some people love it, some people hate it. It's just, you have to sort of, I feel like over time, he's gonna grow on me. That's how I feel about him. Because he's a lot. He was very over the top and dramatic. But I feel like maybe for this type of story, that's great. You don't need, I was talking about how, Roger Delgado does these like really kind of sinister, subtle, this man does not know subtle. He does not, he did not get that memo. And you don't need that. What I love about kind of the villains throughout Doctor Who is you can kind of, you can have different types. And, but I mean, obviously the main thing that I loved seeing one, again, my dear beloved one, still reigning supreme as my favorite classic Doctor. Yeah. Only beat out by 11 and 12. But, so just so sweet to see him, even though, it was brief because of his health, which I read in the comments, like when you guys kind of said that. But also seeing 2 and 3 interact was so much fun. It was so much fun, and it just made me realize how much I missed Patrick so much. Oh my god, I love his energy, and it's just so, you can tell how different 2 and 3 are when they interact with each other, and it was fun, it was exciting, and I had such a great time. I didn't know, well, I wasn't expecting, obviously going into it, that it was going to be a multiple Doctor story. I think that was one of the last things I filmed before I moved. if I'm correct. I think that's right. And it was just such a lovely kind of note to end on. And I truly, truly had such a great time watching it. I have such fond memories of that reaction and releasing that reaction for you guys. Like, that's always going to hold a very, very special place in my heart. Do you guys know number one? Who knows number one? I wonder if anybody could have guessed this. And I think I'm pretty positive this is an unpopular opinion. But hi, it's Seska, the queen of unpopular opinions. It's the demons. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It has everything that I want. First of all, I just want to talk about the tone of it, which I guess we've seen a bit more of in the Fourth Doctor era. I do want to say that. But the tone of it was so lovely. It is weird to say, but it had like horror, and there was like this weird mix of like what was really like science fiction, what was like magic, what was going on. I loved the whole vibe of it. I loved that it was kind of spooky, and let me tell you, oh my God, I love the dynamic between the master. I will say he really does, as I literally just got done saying that he has a really subtle performance. He was pretty dramatic in this, and I loved that. I love that, what's great about the Master, where he keeps returning, is that he has a range to kind of, you don't have to put him in one little box of this is who he is as the Master. I do love that, and I loved him in this story. Oh my God, there was just so much fun. Side characters were great. Let me tell you, you guys know how I feel about good, like, single story characters. They can make or break an entire story. Like, really. Genuinely, going back to the fifth story, I was debating between that story and another story, and it was the professor that made it go over the top for me, I think, to be included in the list, because I love really good side characters. I think that this story had a lot of them. I genuinely, oh my God. And then I loved the use of Benton and Mike and Yates in this story. I really, really do. I think that the whole dynamic of the crew, I think this was probably the like epitome for me of like the whole team kind of really trying to work together. And it was just fun. It's a fun story. I know that this is going to be the story that I rewatch so much from this era, because it just has all of the elements that I really like. And I feel like all of the elements that really makes, the Third Doctor's era iconic for me specifically. It's kind of pretty much the whole gang is there, and it just, I adore it. I love the spooky vibes of it all. I loved that it felt kind of really interesting and new. And I just thought it was lovely. I really, truly did. And I definitely felt like it was in the running to be a top contender for one of the top stories after I got done watching it. But I don't know that this is a popular opinion. I don't know that it's a very beloved story. Maybe it is. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, because I genuinely, when I picked it, I was like, I was looking at the list of stories that I selected, and I was like, it has to be that one. Because whenever I think of that story, I think of just really fond memories watching it, having a good time, and just loving it. And I genuinely was kind of like, is that an unpopular opinion? It might be. I don't actually know. You guys can let me know. Anyway, that is going to be it for the Third Doctor era review. We are going to start the next season of Classic Who next week. This was just a little breaky break to get this out for those of you who really do like the reviews. And truly, I'm just gonna say this really briefly. I've been reacting to Doctor Who for a very long time. You guys know this. A lot of you have followed me for a very, very long time. And as per usual, this fandom, though sometimes volatile, feels like home to me. And I can never express enough how appreciative I am of you guys, of how, I mean, you guys are just beautifully brilliant. And even though we may not agree on everything, even though you may not agree with a lot of stuff that maybe I said in this video, I really truly always feel very loved by you guys. I feel very supported by you guys, and you guys are delightful, and I just wanted to say that. All right. If you would like to support me on Patreon or subscribe, I would really appreciate it. But if not, I'm just happy that you were here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.